This is a flashback story of a girl's life named Isabella. She is the third daughter of the Duke's family. Isabella was once just an ordinary office woman, but she was very tired because she worked in the court center, which always had cases to resolve. The heavy days had made Isabella so bored. She went through a lot of torment because of her job, so to entertain herself, Isabella decided to play games to relieve her stress for a while. Isabella really liked the character from the game she played, namely an otome game called Love Magical, and she had one favorite character. Her favorite character was the ideal type that Isabella wanted to date, a man with thick hair and narrow eyes. And in that game, the character Isabella really liked was named Ursh. The character Isabella adored in that game world was not the main character who becomes the love interest in the game, but Isabella enthusiastically still spent her money just to see the character she liked. There was a reason why Isabella always wasted her money on the game, because when she made payments, Ursh would appear on the screen when she spun the gacha. Isabella's days now were only filled with ways to survive at work and not get stressed when facing her job. The most effective solution for her was to spin the gacha every day and see her favorite character. Isabella was still busy with her gadget. The girl randomly tapped the screen of her gadget just to get a draw because there was an official merchandise launch from the game she was currently playing. But she realized one thing when she traveled for hours and arrived at the store where the merchandise was sold. What made her feel devastated was that the merchandise for the character she liked wasn't sold, because that character only sold merchandise for the main character of the Love Magical game, namely Geis. Disappointed, Isabella felt lifeless at that moment because what she wanted couldn't be obtained. The crowd of people bringing that bad news made Isabella heartbroken. The struggle that ended in vain. Isabella didn't expect to experience disappointment and the bitterness of life, plus finding out there was no Ursh merchandise, her favorite character. Experiencing emotional shock made Isabella's body weak. She turned around and left the store. Because she had come all the way to the city just to compete for Ursh merchandise, and finding out it wasn't sold made Isabella's body weak. She even walked staggering due to malnutrition. In Isabella's slow steps, without realizing it, the high heels she was wearing made her lose balance and fall down the stairs. That was the end of Isabella's life now. Her last memory of her world was where, before dying, Isabella saw a crowd of people trying to help her. Until surprisingly, instead of waking up in the hospital, Isabella ended up entering the fantasy game world she last played. Isabella's life in that fantasy game world went normally. Isabella also seemed happy when she was served by several maids who helped her tidy her long hair. Isabella reincarnated as the antagonist character who acts as the bully to the female protagonist and steals the male partner from the protagonist. Isabella felt it didn't matter. What was important to her now was that she could enjoy life in the fantasy world of the magic love game she often played. Isabella already knew very well the character she would live as because usually the antagonist character would intimidate the protagonist and use any means to make all handsome men hers. Facing her character alone made her excited because she could seize any handsome man she wanted. Currently, Isabella proudly walked leisurely toward her home courtyard. She stepped lightly as if everything she was going through was a destiny to be enjoyed. When Isabella walked leisurely, she saw something familiar in front of her eyes, making her stop walking and look at the object clearly. A boy playing with dirt was in front of her eyes. Isabella's heart started pounding hard because right in front of her was the figure she really wanted to meet. Isabella stared at the boy for a long time, until finally the boy in front of her turned to her, making Isabella stunned and blushing prominently because she felt shy. Her cheeks felt hot. She tried to mutter to calm herself down, but what could she do? Her movements could be read by everyone. Isabella felt nervous. Even when she started asking what the boy was looking at, her voice trembled. For a moment, there was only silence. There was a long staring scene between Isabella and the boy in front of her. Of course, Isabella, feeling stared at, became even more flustered. And a few moments later, the boy in front of Isabella spoke and answered Isabella's question about what he was seeing. Ants. That was the short answer accompanied by a smile from the boy admired by Isabella. A strange answer, but it made Isabella feel endeared to the boy. Isabella felt grateful for being blessed with a precious angel. Her eyes sparkled seeing the figure in front of her, plus the figure was the character Isabella liked in her past life. Ursh, a side character in the love magic world. Ursh, seeing Isabella so enthusiastic about him, could only show a confused face. Of course, he was a bit surprised by the reaction shown by Isabella. Isabella felt nervous, but she couldn't let go of the golden opportunity in front of her. So with slightly stuttering words and her mind chaotic with her feelings for Ursh, she tried to muster her courage. In front of Ursh, Isabella shouted loudly. The girl confidently tried to express her feelings to Ursh. This case couldn't be let go just like that. So Isabella chose to approach the main character figure that made her fall in love first. The question about whether Ursh wanted to marry Isabella made the boy feel surprised, while on the other hand, Isabella already felt satisfied with the courage she had shown. Truly, Isabella saw the figure in front of her feeling surprised by the love confession she threw. But of course, Isabella couldn't hold back because she loved Ursh so much. The adorable expression from the boy even made Isabella want to hug him out of cuteness, truly. The two little children made a promise bond that when they grew up, they would marry. That was the promise made by the school children defying fate. The hand grip done by Ursh made Isabella's heart pound hard. Moreover, she didn't expect that to happen. Ursh said that when they grew up, Isabella would definitely become his bride, and that question was clearly heard by Isabella. Apparently, this time it wasn't Isabella who was good at sweet-talking. According to her, the little boy in front of her was also good at throwing words that made Isabella feel nervous. Ursh said that their promise to marry when they grew up couldn't be cancelled. The boy's narrow eyes and his smile made Isabella stunned. Her heart couldn't operate properly. Even her heartbeat was twice as fast as other normal humans. Happiness enveloped Isabella because she didn't expect the figure she liked to also accept her love, and she was very grateful to God because for the next few years until she reached mature age, she had already gotten the man she desired. There would be no rejection at all. The promise to become a pair of brides and grooms certainly couldn't be rejected by Isabella because honestly, Isabella really wanted Ursh as her man. Her pride in herself almost made Isabella unconsciously leave Ursh, but of course, the boy held back Isabella's departure. He could say, muttering in his heart, that he would never break the promise, and he would never miss his destiny. But behind it all, of course, there was a little worry that Isabella feared, especially when the man with her now could only follow her. Nothing could pass the moment of meeting between Isabella and Ursh. Even the wedding plan when they grew up had been thought out so maturely, and now Isabella seemed to want to introduce Ursh to her family. From that moment on, and until the end of time, Isabella promised that Ursh would always be under her protection. Isabella is the daughter of the Duke's family, and of course, she couldn't hide that from Ursh, the man she would marry when she grew up. Ursh, hearing that Isabella was part of the Duke's family, was of course a bit surprised. Even Isabella could read the boy's face. Ursh, who was now in front of Isabella's eyes, looked so cute. Because Isabella had told him that she was the third daughter of the Duke's family, Ursh also formally introduced himself. Ursh is the second son of the Schneever family. Ursh smiled kindly at Isabella, introducing himself and from which family he came. Isabella didn't expect to find out from which family Ursh, the man she admired, came. Imagining how it would be when Isabella married Ursh, she would also bear the family title from that man. When that happened, just imagining it made Isabella extremely happy. But Isabella's happiness was only temporary because she felt slapped when Ursh reminded her about their vastly different family statuses, and that certainly shocked Isabella. She didn't expect their differences to be so great because one was from a noble family and the other was just from an ordinary family, namely a merchant. The gentle breeze brushed Isabella's face. There was something that made Isabella tense again. She realized one thing. The words of the boy in front of her were very influential. Their future might change because of the family status difference, or if that happened, their promise to marry after growing up certainly couldn't happen. And just thinking about that made Isabella feel annoyed. She even planned to elope. Well, what could she do? Isabella just did what she wanted, and she tried to calm Ursh that their marriage would happen, and according to her calculations, everything would be fine. There was something Ursh didn't know. Isabella was a reincarnated person. Isabella already knew the plot of the game world where she lived now. Because Isabella had the advantage of reading the plot of what would happen in her life in the game world. Isabella felt confident that even if there was opposition in their marriage later, Isabella could force the marriage to still happen. Of course, Isabella had plus points after reincarnating, and what she wanted could be easily guessed and changed if she didn't want it. Isabella has a father named Duke and a mother named Rosriel. What Isabella knows is that her father and mother married because of the true love they had. Isabella also has 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters, so a total of 4 siblings, and 5 including Isabella, where Isabella's status is as the youngest child of the family. All of Isabella's brothers and sisters have good backgrounds, and their partners are also very noble. There are many plot stories that Isabella knows, even the ins and outs of her slightly complicated and boring romance. In the previous story, because Isabella stole someone else's fiancé unfairly, she was executed by people who didn't like her. That's why Isabella wants to change her own fate. She will marry the figure she loves, and if she marries him, Isabella will have a happy ending. Truly, when she realized that and became aware that her story plot had changed, it made Isabella jump for joy. She would have a family that loves each other. The small, handsome face and thick hair of Ursh had already hypnotized Isabella to quickly have that man, especially when the child entrusted all matters regarding their relationship when they grew up to Isabella. Once again, Isabella was like a cheap girl in front of Ursh because when Ursh called her name, it already made Isabella's body tremble heavily due to explosions of happiness. After the conversation between Isabella and Ursh, Isabella hurried back to her house. She even unconsciously ran at full speed. Upon arriving home, Isabella shouted excitedly, calling her father and mother. Even Isabella's voice boomed, making her siblings look at her with question marks. Isabella also didn't forget to drag Ursh to meet her family. Of course, Ursh just surrendered. Now Isabella, with the attitude of pulling the hand of the man she loved, introduced him to her parents. The initially quiet atmosphere suddenly became chaotic with Isabella's shrieks. The girl's loud narration was clearly heard by Isabella's household. Isabella confidently introduced Ursh, who would become Isabella's groom. Ursh smiled sweetly, as if he knew he had to be polite to his future in-laws and siblings-in-law. Isabella's sudden appearance with the announcement that she would marry the boy she brought made Isabella's parents feel puzzled. They even stayed silent for quite a long time. Isabella still tried to convince her father and mother. She repeatedly said that she would marry the man she was holding now. But that narration still didn't yield a response from her parents until finally Isabella negotiated with her mother. And of course, her mother didn't mind it, making Isabella's father almost faint. A very funny scene. Initially, Isabella's father reacted casually, but in the end, finding his youngest child so aggressive made him swallow the bitter pill of life and faint. Ursh, seeing the drama from the Duke's family, could only smile wryly. He even innocently said that it seemed Isabella's father had fainted and died. Of course, he was also a bit worried whether that would be okay for Isabella. There was a little worry shown by Isabella toward her father, but she was even more worried if her father didn't approve of Isabella marrying Ursh. But on the other hand, if she thought about it, if her father didn't wake up, that would be bad. In truth, Isabella still needed her father to be the escort for the bride. However, something else also shook her because if her father didn't approve of the marriage, she certainly couldn't change her fate, especially now. If observed, Ursh really wanted their marriage to happen, and the boy trusted Isabella very much. This time, Isabella was made hesitant. She could only play with her fingers to release the nervousness she felt. Like an innocent little child, even if her father didn't agree, Isabella would still choose Ursh as her life partner. She was even willing to trade with Ursh. Ursh also skillfully responded to all of Isabella's words, saying that he would happily save for their future living expenses and study harder so that they could live peacefully and calmly. Ursh also admitted that he would learn the benefits of herbal plants so that he could easily sell those herbs later. Isabella heard some doubts in Ursh's narration, so she speculated that Ursh was a bit different from what she imagined. In the chaotic conversation of the Duke's family, suddenly Ursh's father arrived. A tall and handsome man, Ursh's father is named Nathan. Ursh's father didn't understand the plan made by his son. He thought his son was no longer sane, it seemed. Ursh's father was left baffled when Isabella greeted him as father-in-law. Until finally, to avoid greater chaos, Nathan pulled his son away from the Duke's family residence. Nathan was afraid that he and his son would offend the family. Ursh's departure, taken by his father, didn't extinguish Ursh's intention to communicate with Isabella. Ursh even tried to wave his hand and say that he would meet Isabella again, and that succeeded in making Isabella flustered and thinking their conversation was already like a married couple. There was a little prayer chant uttered by Isabella. She wanted to live with Ursh and find her happiness. This is Ursh's story. He is a boy from a simple family. He has one older brother and also a younger sibling, but he lives his life in silence because he always feels alone amid the crowd of people around him. Ursh often feels lonely. He always wanders following wherever his father takes him to trade. Often Ursh can only daydream. Ursh doesn't have a single friend. His older brother has gone to school, and his younger sibling is taken care of by a maid. And in the end, Ursh has to follow his father to go trading. Honestly, when Ursh goes with his father, he is not allowed to join in trading, so Ursh is just left alone in the carriage where his father stores his goods. Honestly, it's very boring if Ursh has to be in that carriage, but what can he do? The only thing Ursh can do is guard the carriage to keep it safe. When Ursh intended to leave his carriage and he met noble children, he could only receive insults, and Ursh could only curl up without fighting back. Ursh was insulted and mocked because he came from an ordinary family. Ursh even often received unpleasant treatment because he was bullied by noble children. Ursh was not only attacked about his poor family, but he was also physically attacked. Ursh was often bullied because of his too narrow eyes and his frizzy hair. Insult after insult continued until it made Ursh hate himself. Mockery and insults never left Ursh's hearing. What he got now was only people's talk belittling his family. People even often said that Ursh's family only managed a developing company. There were also some nobles who reached his family as obsessed with gold and so stingy because they hoarded wealth. From hearing that, Ursh started to isolate himself. He even almost never left the carriage and could only curl up hugging his own body. One day, without Ursh realizing it, he was taken by his father to meet the Duke's family. At that time, Ursh observed the tall, towering building in front of him. He stared in awe at the building because Ursh had never seen a building that big at all. What he knew now was that the Duke's family called his father because they wanted to buy something as an engagement gift for their child. The fiancé of the eldest child of the Duke's family is the crown prince from the neighboring country. And of course, Ursh knew that because he heard many things from his father's conversation. Ursh felt the people around him were so disgusting. Ursh's hatred toward noble families made him feel all nobles were the same. Ursh even bet that the Duke's family was just like most other nobles who liked to belittle his family. There was something that made Ursh feel weak. He couldn't stand the many taunts he received, so Ursh tried to convince himself not to leave his father's carriage. He held firm to his stance that Ursh would stay in the carriage until the end. Ursh could only last for 4 hours because his father took so long negotiating with the Duke's family. Slowly, Ursh stepped out of the carriage. He tried to wander around to breathe fresh air. Ursh's steps were so sure, although there was anxiety in his heart. He was afraid that he would meet noble children and again inflict wounds on Ursh's heart. The gentle breeze brushing Ursh made him a bit calm. There were also some things that became questions for Ursh. Why his father took so long negotiating with the Duke's family. Ursh also had a bad premonition when he saw 3 carriages lined up along the road he saw. Quite far from his carriage, he started to be brave because the Duke's family courtyard was very spacious and also quiet because he tried to avoid crowds. During his walk, Ursh was puzzled when he saw a line of ants working very hard, and that touched his heart, reminding him of the employees working with his family. A faint smile appeared on Ursh's lips, indicating that he was comfortable seeing the ants around him. A loud voice sounded exactly like a shout. Ursh didn't expect that he would meet a child from the noble family. Initially, Ursh's body trembled. He was afraid that the figure who spoke would also belittle him, but Ursh's assumption was wrong. The girl's voice was like a gentle girl asking Ursh about what he was doing. Ursh was curious about who the bold girl was interrupting Ursh's activity. Ursh's narrow eyes scanned the girl speaking to him. How amazed Ursh was. For the first time, he saw a beautiful girl from a noble family talking to him. Ursh stayed silent for a moment. He just realized that the girl beside him was asking about what Ursh was doing. Of course, he tried to answer casually, even sounding indifferent. Ants. That was the single word that came out of Ursh's mouth. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the girl who invited him to talk just stayed silent. He saw how round the girl's eyes were. Ursh also covered himself because he spoke carelessly, and of course, that disturbed his mind because maybe at that time the girl thought he was weird. Just looking at the beautiful girl in front of him already made Ursh amazed because for the first time, there was a noble child willing to talk to him. For the first time, something unexpected happened. Ursh's heart pounded hard. He saw how the girl in front of him smiled happily. Ursh tried to stare intently, enjoying the girl. He even thought he would be very happy if he could make a free smile like that girl without feeling small. There were a few more things that made Ursh even more confused. For the first time, He didn't hear harsh words from a noble child. He felt like he misheard the girl's words where the girl said that Ursh was a cute boy. She even shouted asking Ursh to marry her. Truly, Ursh never imagined that there was someone who liked him because if he thought about it, more noble children mocked Ursh's appearance. Maybe this time Ursh really misheard. He confirmed several times that the noble child's words were not wrong. The lush garden courtyard of the Duke's family added a warm atmosphere. Behind Ursh's confusion, he could still breathe the fresh air in the environment where he was. Ursh couldn't analyze all the words from the figure in front of him. He occasionally asked himself. Initially, Ursh didn't believe the girl's words. Ursh even thought that the girl in front of him wasn't talking to him. For a moment, when Ursh looked around, there was only him and the girl, so it was certain that the girl in front of him was really talking to Ursh. But the problem was why she wanted to marry Ursh even though the girl knew that Ursh was a merchant's child. Ursh guessed about the girl's purpose in liking someone like him. Behind his tangled mind, he could only stay silent, not answering all the girl's words asking him to marry her. An unknown attraction. The girl in front of Ursh looked so sweet in his eyes, especially when the girl smiled. His heart trembled heavily. Ursh felt that if he was beside her every day, perhaps he could die in a happy state, and in the future, he felt it would be difficult to find someone else. Plus, he didn't know if there would be a figure who saw him with sparkling eyes like the girl in front of him. Ursh was fixated for a moment. He felt a strange vibration in him. The girl made him melt. Ursh felt that the nickname he received as Familiar Fafnir was a fitting reason because besides being obsessed with gold or treasure, he was also obsessed with certain people or actions, and that's why now Ursh was determined. He would do anything to get the treasure he wanted. For Ursh, the woman in front of him was a treasure that couldn't be missed just like that, because it would be very difficult in the future if he didn't take the right action. Ursh was truly enchanted by the beauty of the girl in front of him. Ursh had rounded his determination where he would make the girl a treasure that he would guard later. Ursh would do anything to protect the girl's sweet smile. Even if she wanted to get the world, Ursh would definitely do anything to fulfill the desire of the woman he liked. Truly, whatever happens later, Ursh no longer cares, so he doesn't want to miss the opportunity to become the lover of the woman who for the first time praised Ursh's appearance. Ursh also said that when they grow up, he will marry the woman, and of course, the woman can't retract the words that have been spoken about how she wants to marry Ursh because Ursh won't let the woman go just like that. That's why now Ursh has faced his father. He also said that in the end, he has found the only treasure he has. His father already knows his son's thoughts about how Ursh wants to marry the daughter of the Duke's family. Ursh's father even half pleaded because the father knew that his family couldn't possibly marry a noble family. Actually, Ursh's father felt regretful. He even sighed in resignation because he couldn't do anything for his son, but he also realized that Ursh's smile indicated that the boy was very serious with his words, especially if Ursh had determination and desire. Ursh's father couldn't do anything. What power does a father have? He couldn't refute all his son's words, especially since it was the first time he saw how the boy he raised was good at making decisions for the first time. Ursh's father only gave advice to his son that in matters of matchmaking, especially marriage, he must discuss the issue with Ursh's mother because anything concerning his child couldn't possibly not be linked to his mother. From a distance behind the window, Isabella saw how Ursh and his father were chatting about their marriage when they grew up. Isabella certainly felt anxious. She was afraid that her future father-in-law wouldn't approve of her relationship with Ursh, and of course, Isabella had to rack her brains to get her future father-in-law's attention. An idea popped into Isabella's mind. She couldn't just wait for Ursh to persuade his father. So when Isabella saw workers collaborating with the Schneever company, the company owned by Ursh's family, Isabella intended to approach them. Not without reason. Isabella wanted to mingle with the workers at her father's company because she thought maybe she could learn more about Ursh or perhaps about her future father-in-law. Isabella needed to convince Ursh's father about the continuation of her relationship with Ursh. Therefore, she needed to know what her future father-in-law liked and disliked. The booming voices of the workers certainly made Isabella a bit scared, but she had no other choice. She had to dig up something important about Ursh's family. A feeling of hesitation now enveloped Isabella. She couldn't burden the workers with the many questions she would throw later, especially since she had to communicate intensively with some workers from Ursh's father's family. She saw how the situation made the workers busy. They carried so many goods requested by the Duke's family. Isabella thoughtlessly that it might be very easy for the workers to move goods if they used teleportation magic. As far as Isabella knew, if she recalled when she played the Love Magical game, she found one item box that could be used to ease the work of moving goods. But the problem was she couldn't do that because she didn't know how to activate that magic. Trying doesn't hurt, right? That's what Isabella did now. She was like a silly girl chanting a spell, but unfortunately, she didn't change anything, and funnily, now Isabella looked like a foolish girl. The silly nature suddenly shown by Isabella made her realize that now she was in a fantasy world. But something strange happened where people didn't notice her presence at all. Isabella's presence now wasn't detected, causing her not to expect that she had that ability because, as Isabella remembered, she only had a few items she knew could be used, and for some time, Isabella tried to recall what magic she could use. Healing magic. This was one of the magics thought by Isabella. Isabella also had another plan regarding her magic. She once thought of going with Ursh, and if it happened, she might be able to sell items from the magic she got. There were also some things Isabella tried to check on the notification screen where the hardest magic item she got was now gone, vanished without a trace, even though that item was very valuable, and Isabella had struggled to obtain that ability. On the screen where Isabella knew the magic items she always used was the food storage item, and she now realized that the food had been there for 6 years, so she intended to take that food. Now Isabella realized one thing, that the closet magic she had was a form of storage magic, and if she stored items with that magic, when the item was inserted, time would stop, and when she took it years later, everything still looked the same. Isabella had thought hard about it. She even wanted to experiment with her magic. But sometime after that, when Isabella walked through her home courtyard carrying bread from her magic item, she was shocked by Ursh's sudden arrival, making her fall to the ground. Ursh saw from afar. There was a strange movement shown by Isabella, so he quickly approached the girl and asked what Isabella was doing, but his sudden appearance shocked Isabella until she fell. Isabella lay on the ground for quite a while until finally she stood up smiling and said that she really wanted to help Ursh carry goods into the warehouse owned by Isabella's family. Of course, when hearing that, Ursh started to panic. He refused help from Isabella because he knew that the goods he carried were very heavy and impossible for a woman to lift them all. But what could he do? Ursh couldn't do anything when Isabella had memorized her magic spell. There was something strange that couldn't be explained by the naked eye because now Ursh saw how Isabella made the high-stacked and heavy goods disappear just like that. Everyone was confused. Even some of them stared at Isabella with pressure, and Isabella felt like entering a horror world. Isabella started smiling. She explained to Ursh and the workers behind Ursh. Of course, everyone was afraid if the goods they had brought disappeared just like that. To prove that Ursh's goods were safe, Isabella chanted the spell again to return Ursh's goods, and as a result, the goods were neatly arranged as before. Ursh's narrow eyes widened, indicating that Ursh didn't believe what he saw until a few moments later he started shouting. Ursh's booming shout certainly caused a commotion until Ursh's father approached the source of the sound, so he asked about what commotion had occurred. Isabella started to panic. She tried to convince her future father-in-law, where she tried to help move the existing goods with the space and time magic she had. As if Isabella's statement was something strange, many questions arose in Ursh's father's and Ursh's own minds. Isabella's body trembled. She was a bit nervous, afraid that her future father-in-law would consider Isabella strange. So Isabella tried to explain how she made that comb, and of course, Isabella felt enthusiastic. Isabella also didn't expect that her explanation about the space-time magic she had made Ursh praise Isabella's ability. Ursh even said that Isabella was an extraordinary person. Ursh's words praising her made Isabella bloom with joy. Ursh was truly amazed by Isabella. He even wondered how Isabella could control the magic she had. Of course, Isabella happily explained everything from how she could store and retrieve items as she pleased. She also tried to convince Ursh that later Ursh didn't need to load many goods into the carriage he usually carried. The conversation of the two little children had to stop because there was a maid looking for them and ordering them to come quickly to receive the call. Isabella's greatness with her space-time magic made her even more superior. She even offered herself to join trading with Ursh's family, and Ursh's father didn't mind it. But of course, he still had a few questions about how Isabella maintained the condition of the goods to remain the same and in good condition. Isabella thought for quite a while. She had to show how she could maintain the shape and quality of goods after storing them in her space and time magic. Of course, initially, Isabella couldn't explain the theory of using space and time magic, and it was also impossible for Isabella to show how the bread stored for 6 years was still warm when she took it from the space and time magic item she mastered. Isabella didn't want to look strange and foolish in front of her future father-in-law or Ursh, so Isabella tried to look normal when demonstrating her magic, and for a moment, she got a good idea to show to her father-in-law and Ursh. It seemed that Isabella's plan to join trading with Ursh's family could soon be realized because seeing her father-in-law's reaction so enthusiastic made her relieved, especially since her father-in-law wondered how and where Isabella learned such extraordinary magic that was very useful for merchants. They had been standing in the yard for quite a while, which is why Isabella thought to change the topic and bring her future father-in-law and Ursh into her magnificent house. Upon arriving inside Isabella's house, Isabella asked her father-in-law and Ursh to sit for a moment, but after Isabella left, without realizing it, Ursh's father and Ursh brewed the drink given by Isabella to show her magic earlier. There were many questions from Ursh's father because it was the first time he drank such a delicious drink until he planned to make that drink. However, spontaneously, Ursh said that the ingredients for making that drink were very rare. Ursh's words about the drink ingredients given by Isabella shocked Isabella. She didn't expect Ursh to know all that. The atmosphere turned tense. Isabella didn't understand why the father and son were so obsessed with the drink she gave. Occasionally, her future father-in-law asked Ursh to tell about Ursh's ability in appraising something. There was also something that made Isabella very happy when her future father-in-law said that Isabella was Ursh's fiancée. Now Isabella understood. She was a bit superior because she already knew the past because she always played the love magic game. A moment later, something else shocked Isabella a bit when Ursh said that he would enter the Rosarial Magic Academy later when he turned 15. Ursh's narration made Isabella remember one thing. In Isabella's memory, Ursh sold many magic items he made during school at the Magic Academy. Now Isabella understood why in the past Ursh could sell magic items at school. Maybe he had gotten permission from the school to just trade. But Isabella felt strange because there were some things Isabella knew that in the game world, Ursh wasn't a very influential person at school, but sometimes was often around the school to trade. There were many chaotic thoughts in Isabella. She thought that what Ursh did was a form of illegal trading. Is everything true? That's what Isabella has to find out now. But seeing how her father-in-law and Ursh smiled made Isabella just stay silent because she was still busy in the tangle of her thoughts about Ursh. Confused? Of course, especially since Isabella couldn't ask anything about the past because only she knew and experienced it all, while Ursh and her future father-in-law didn't. Nathan's arrival at the Duke's family was warmly welcomed by the head of the noble family. Isabella's sudden engagement to Ursh made the Duke rack his brains. He felt shocked when his daughter announced that she had chosen a partner to marry when she grew up. The Duke, of course, thought long and hard because he couldn't possibly let his daughter go to someone he didn't know yet, even though the Duke's family and Nathan had already collaborated. Considering the situation, the Duke tried to steady himself with his daughter's choice, so he humbly apologized to Nathan's family for taking too long to decide. Meanwhile, Isabella's mother could only laugh at the Duke, her husband, feeling sorry when she saw her husband crying and wiping sweat when Isabella, their daughter, brought a little boy and announced that they would promise to marry each other when they grew up. Isabella's mother thought the Duke's actions looked cute, especially when the Duke sulked, not wanting to be seen as weak by his wife. The Duke now felt his body warm. He was a bit emotional with his daughter's statement, but of course, the Duke couldn't pressure Isabella, so he tried to convince his daughter with a decision that might make her regret it later. The Duke held his breath for a moment. This time, he spoke seriously to Isabella. The Duke started throwing several questions at Isabella to confirm his daughter's decision to marry an ordinary person. The Duke asked if Isabella understood the meaning of her words, and of course, Isabella was very sure. She was even aware that her words greatly affected the Duke's family, who were nobles. The Duke tried to convince his daughter because out there were still many people suitable for Isabella in the future. However, no matter how much the Duke tried to shake his daughter's heart, Isabella remained convinced and didn't change her mind. The girl even said that she wasn't interested in marrying anyone else besides Ursh. The Duke could only accept Isabella's words at that time. When Isabella had made up her mind, she no longer cared how grand the marriage prospects might be when she grew up. Isabella would definitely reject them all. The convincing gesture in Isabella and how she emphasized that her choice was right made her father, the Duke, only able to surrender. In Isabella's mind, her feelings were love that crossed world boundaries because before she reincarnated, she had already liked Ursh. Therefore, she had to be with Ursh, or everything meant nothing to her. The Duke started thinking for a moment. He understood when he observed his daughter's movements, who was so sure about marrying someone from an ordinary family. Therefore, the Duke also had no choice. That's why now he was negotiating with Ursh's father. Nathan didn't mind how his son Ursh would marry Isabella, because they also had no reason to reject Isabella, especially since Isabella came from a noble family. But of course, Ursh's family was still self-aware, so they tried to rely on everything with the Duke's wisdom, so that no one would feel disadvantaged later. When hearing Ursh's father's narration, it made the Duke think a bit, and in his mind, he felt that Isabella would be better off marrying someone from a noble family whose status was higher than the Duke's family because, after all, Isabella was his youngest child and the family's last hope. There was a slight tickling feeling in the Duke's heart because their family motto was to marry for true love. If seen from Isabella's expression, the Duke could understand that his daughter loved Ursh very much, but he was still on the verge of a dilemma because he felt it was a pity if Isabella married someone from an ordinary family because, according to him, Isabella was still a 6-year-old child who spoke carelessly. But the hesitation kept growing when he remembered how Isabella tried to convince him. Until finally, the Duke tried to respect his daughter's choice because he wanted to please his child's heart. The marriage that would happen later wasn't for the Duke to live, but for Isabella. So he felt Isabella should feel happy and not pressured. For some reason, Isabella's heart felt something strange when she didn't get any rejection from her father. Now Isabella tried to oppose her father in her mind. She argued with the Duke, her father. She couldn't read her father's mind for now. But Isabella knew one thing where her father thought that her engagement to Ursh was only temporary. That couldn't be avoided, but she felt there was another plan that her father would make because she should be happy if her father didn't reject her request to get engaged to Ursh. But because there was strange behavior from her father, it made Isabella have to be a bit vigilant. The feeling of silence increasingly hit Isabella. She started thinking about the plan she would do later to maintain her engagement to Ursh. The past that Isabella already knew certainly made her more restless. She knew that her feelings for Ursh had to remain the same because their engagement was still in the form of a temporary engagement since they were still young and not legal. Isabella had to wait another 9 years for their engagement to be officially held. The anxiety that increasingly plagued Isabella was certainly not without reason because she knew the beginning of the game story would start where in the past. Isabella only attended magic school for 1 year, but this time, she had to change her fate to marry Ursh, and for that, Isabella had to survive in magic school for 3 years and graduate with Ursh. Another thing that made Isabella think hard to survive in magic school was that she had to avoid the characters in the academy and complete her first year, because she had to stay away from the bad ending that would happen. This time, Isabella had to exert all means so that her plan could run smoothly. If Isabella paid attention to the plot of the love magical game, she certainly knew very well that the game was a dating game for women. In other words, the game increased the interest of dateable characters, and in that fantasy world, Isabella could only meet great people at the Rosereal Kingdom Academy. To enter the Academy of the Rosereal Kingdom wasn't easy, because Isabella had to have sufficient magic abilities. Truly, a very hard struggle would soon begin where Isabella had to sacrifice her youth just to practice magic, so she could easily enter the academy. Therefore, she also tried to learn several majors in the academy that would suit her. Isabella, the girl, remembered how difficult it was for her to be in the academy because Isabella would be judged evil by many people for stealing men from many girls. Isabella's story started from the first year of the academy, and there were 3 men who used to attract Isabella's attention to be her partner. The first candidate was the second prince named Christopher. The man had sharp eyes, a pointed nose, and small lips. He even looked very charming and authoritative. The second candidate that Isabella found attractive was the son of the head of the magic government, namely Geis. Far different from the appearance of the first man who attracted Isabella because Geis had calm eyes and a sweet smile, just like a gentle man. Meanwhile, the last candidate that attracted Isabella was the son of the knight leader, namely Brian. The man had sharper eyes than Christopher and a pointed nose as well as a charming smile that could make girls crazy about him. Isabella's gaze now began to display a war aura because she clearly remembered how Christopher often rebelled with her. But Isabella was made to fall in love at first sight and forced to get engaged. Therefore, Isabella was very sure that later she would meet Christopher again and shake her feelings not to love Ursh anymore. But there was something a bit strange where Isabella hadn't met Christopher yet. She thought maybe it was because of her family's political influence. Meanwhile, her relationship with Geiss was a bit more complicated because Geiss was the brother-in-law of Isabella's sister. In the past, as Isabella remembered, she acted cheating to sabotage Geiss's relationship with the protagonist in the game world she played. But of course, this time she was aware and didn't want to do bad things anymore because she already had Ursh. For Brian, when Isabella played the game, she hadn't met the man yet. Isabella should be fine as long as she didn't approach Brian. If the situation was like now where Isabella had found her heart's anchor, maybe for some time ahead, she wouldn't be able to meet the three men. Isabella realized that she loved Ursh very much. Therefore, what was left now was that she would only enjoy her time with Ursh, and Isabella made sure that later they would become an inseparable couple, especially since Isabella could avoid all kinds of bad events that would befall her. Isabella no longer wanted her life to be disturbed by dealing with the female hero who became the protagonist in her game world. In 1 year in the game world, she was expelled from the academy only in the first year. Therefore, she was determined to survive because she had reincarnated into the game world. Therefore, she wanted to maintain her reputation. Just imagining that made Isabella smile satisfied. She truly felt that she could get through her days in the academy. Isabella felt truly happy that she would only focus on Ursh, and when she was in the same school as her idol, she would only spend time encouraging Ursh. For now, Isabella didn't need to think about bad things, so she started singing cheerfully and then checked her wardrobe because she planned to ask Ursh on a date. But after Isabella did that, when she looked at her wardrobe, Isabella was pensive for a moment, the thinking expression to choose suitable clothes to wear looked very adorable. This time, the wardrobe was open. She had many identical items, and of course, that wasn't normal for Isabella again. Her face was both angry and annoyed. However, after that, when she realized that all the items she obtained came from Ursh's family, Isabella clicked her tongue in admiration because of Ursh's skills, plus Ursh was also a handsome man. The many items Isabella stored made her think to sell those items. The items Isabella had now were very good items. And to get amazing items, Isabella had to face many monsters, but of course for now she couldn't do it. All the items she obtained were when she was still living outside the fantasy world of magic love. Truly, Isabella's movements couldn't be read. She even said that she wanted to date Ursh, but now, if seen, Isabella was busy with herself. Isabella now had a status that needed to be checked because the fantasy world she lived in now was an extraordinary world. Therefore, with great enthusiasm, Isabella spread her magic to see how high her magic level was, but for some requirements, silence began to occur. Only the sound of crickets was heard. Many things had happened and been passed by Isabella. She even didn't expect that many items she obtained, and Isabella almost reached the maximum level, namely 99. Isabella realized that her level was very burdensome for a 6-year-old girl. Maybe Isabella tried too hard when she was in the world, because to please Ursh, Isabella completed many missions. Truly amazing, Isabella got the rarest item from the magic she obtained. Therefore, the girl felt proud and shouted happily, but of course, Isabella still didn't know how to activate the skill on that item. Maybe now, if Isabella had a choice, she wanted to have an appraisal skill like Ursh because all that would be very useful, especially when Isabella planned to enter the Alchemy Academy. Truly firm in Isabella's stance, even now she clasped her hands, determined to be together with Ursh. Therefore, to achieve the greatness she wanted, Isabella would try to activate the steps she had, and maybe what Isabella knew would be very different from the game she usually played. The terrifying days full of silence had been passed by Isabella. The fact that she hadn't met Ursh for 2 months made Isabella feel stressed. She even missed her idol very much. After the temporary engagement happened, the Duke didn't allow Isabella to meet Ursh. Isabella was angry. She even cursed her father as a parent who didn't understand his child's feelings. Even though Isabella had shouted cursing the Duke, he still held firm that his daughter couldn't meet Ursh. She had been given leniency by her father because Isabella was still allowed to send letters to Ursh. But that alone wasn't enough for Isabella, because what she wanted wasn't a letter from Ursh but a meeting, especially since they hadn't met for 2 months, which made Isabella feel a very deep longing. The piled-up letters had been sent by Isabella. She also received replies from Ursh, but wouldn't it be very painful if their relationship was without meetings? That's what was on Isabella's mind now. The girl could only lament her own fate because she couldn't see the handsome face of the person she loved. The feeling of silence, loneliness, and boredom made Isabella unable to stand it. Therefore, while she didn't meet Ursh, Isabella busied herself with training the skills she had. Various skills had been tried by Isabella because the girl seemed very serious with her choice. One of the magic skills successfully applied by Isabella was X-ray vision, especially now she had dirty thoughts to practice on the household assistant who worked with her. And of course, Isabella couldn't control how much she wanted to test her X-ray vision skill, and her prey this time couldn't escape. Isabella stared intently at the maid. She clearly saw what underwear the maid was using. Until unconsciously, Isabella praised herself. She was very happy to be blessed with super abilities. After Isabella was happy because she judged herself great, suddenly she was made to drop again because she was afraid that the view of her would become very bad. Therefore, suddenly Isabella felt her head dizzy. After a short reasoning, she did to the maid where her maid still had below standard abilities, even though she had entered adulthood. That's why Isabella felt devastated. She was afraid that Ursh would consider her a terrifying girl. Isabella felt afraid of her abilities that were so high for an age that was still young. Isabella planned to try to hide because she didn't want Ursh to consider her a scary gorilla. That's why now Isabella tried to chant a prayer so that Ursh would never judge her badly. All things had been considered by the set of skills she obtained. Isabella even came up with her silly thoughts where she could turn into a ninja to use her extraordinary abilities so as not to be detected by Ursh. There were various reasons for Isabella to keep honing her skills because she had to have high enough magic to enter the academy. Even now, Isabella tried invisibility magic. Many voices had been uttered by Isabella, but her presence was never detected by the maid. She even tried to disturb her maid, but all that certainly didn't last long. Isabella's behavior that caused chaos in the house made her maid panic. The female maid complained to her head maid that she heard strange voices that were so disturbing, but of course, the head maid said that he was just an old man who didn't know anything. Isabella, who had caused the chaos and saw her maid so panicked, just stayed silent watching what she thought was an interesting show. There was something that made Isabella feel annoyed. She didn't expect that her young maid liked a man, namely the head maid who was already old. According to her, that was not good. Her eyes were even made itchy and couldn't stand the romantic hug she saw. Of course, there was jealousy in Isabella's heart because she couldn't hug romantically with the person she loved for now. Isabella started to feel tired because she was disguising herself by sticking to the roof of the house. Of course, Isabella couldn't come down with the situation she saw now where the maid was making love. She was afraid of ruining their mood. However, Isabella couldn't stand it anymore because she wanted to go to the bathroom. The limp face from holding back from going to the bathroom looked very funny. Marie, a female maid who had served the Duke's family for quite a long time, and now the female maid confessed her love to her superior, namely the head maid named Sean. Seeing Marie's determination so great, of course, Isabella had to hold back because if she suddenly came down surprising Marie and Sean, of course, that wouldn't be good. Isabella took a deep breath. She considered that it was impossible for her to surprise the two couples who were being intimate, but behind her calm expression, Isabella couldn't stand it anymore. She even asked when she could go to the bathroom. What power! Now Isabella tried not to be selfish and evil. She knew how Marie admired Sean so much. That's why Isabella tried to understand and hold herself back from ruining the existing atmosphere, even though she had to hold the tightness in her. The peaceful atmosphere with a bit of fog smoke indicating the arrival of winter made everyone feel calm. But this time, Isabella had a mission. She followed Marie's movements and used disguise magic until when she followed Marie, Isabella's presence wasn't detected by her. The slow swing of footsteps indicated that Marie was very curious about the maid's activities because if recalled, it had been 2 days since her maid expressed her feelings to the woman she loved. Isabella tried to observe her maid's movements. Honestly, Marie wanted to know if the love confession Marie threw at Sean went smoothly or not. Isabella only felt a bit worried about Marie because the girl with Sean had a little argument and there was no resolution at all that day. But of course, Isabella couldn't criticize because her relationship with Ursh wasn't fine either. There was no development at all, and that made Isabella feel worried. Isabella was even afraid that Ursh's thoughts about her were bad thoughts because it was seen from Isabella's anxious expression. Isabella was a very persistent girl. Isabella loved her match so much. Therefore, she thought that they had to marry based on love, and Isabella wanted to show her charm to Ursh. It turned out there was another reason from Isabella why she tried to follow Marie, because Isabella asked Marie to send a letter to Ursh. The trick was done by Isabella because she wanted to know where Ursh lived. At least she could see Ursh from afar, even if she couldn't meet him directly. Isabella started to feel restless when she realized that Marie walked so slowly. Even when she followed her, Isabella felt that Marie wasn't okay. Isabella for the first time left the house without her parents' knowledge. She boldly followed Marie just to meet Ursh. Isabella actually wasn't too comfortable with crowds, but it wasn't a sign that Isabella didn't like it. The bustling urban atmosphere with whispering voices made Isabella feel a bit anxious, but she tried to convince herself that such an atmosphere wasn't bad. Isabella's presence in the middle of the city certainly wasn't realized by people, but a small voice that sounded familiar made Isabella turn her head. For a moment, Isabella was stunned. She didn't expect that Ursh was beside her. Of course, Isabella asked how long Ursh had been by her side, and Ursh casually said he had been around Isabella for quite a while. Isabella's voice screeched so loudly to the ears. Isabella's scream wasn't without reason. She was just a bit confused why Ursh could see her even though Isabella had used presence-erasing magic, especially since people couldn't see Isabella when in the crowd. For proof, it could also be confirmed because Marie also didn't realize Isabella's presence, who was following her. A quite difficult situation for Isabella. She planned to meet Ursh secretly, but her plan failed even though she had activated presence-erasing magic and also magic detection, so she couldn't be kidnapped by bad people. But all that ended in vain because Ursh easily found Isabella. Of course, Isabella asked how Ursh could find her. With a sweet smile and his narrow eyes that also smiled, Ursh kindly and gently explained where he had a special skill that allowed him to blend in with others. Even that person wouldn't realize Ursh's presence, and according to Ursh, it was easy. Isabella felt that her action was silly because it was easily guessed by Ursh. She thought that maybe her love wasn't strong enough, so that Ursh could easily realize Isabella's presence. The reason why Ursh could meet Isabella didn't mean because Isabella didn't have strong love for Ursh. Rather, Ursh tried to explain that he could easily meet what was his. That's why Ursh asked Isabella not to be sad. Isabella's heart pounded hard. How not Ursh, the man she loved, considered Isabella as his. That confession had made one central development for their relationship, and of course, Isabella thought that Ursh was willing to marry her. The bursting happiness made Isabella forget her maid. She even had to be reminded by Ursh when her maid left. Isabella panicked seeing that Marie would act recklessly. Marie's disappearance wasn't a good sign, especially since the girl had her love rejected. Therefore, Isabella thought to search for Marie, and her thoughts were certainly read by Ursh. Therefore, Ursh suggested they search for Marie together, and a romantic thing happened where Ursh extended his hand offering for Isabella to hold his hand so they could search for Marie together. Isabella's hand and Ursh's hand united to form a grip. Isabella felt the warmth of Ursh's hand grip on her until it made Isabella's heart dance because she was so happy. Her body even froze for a moment until she had to be reminded by Ursh that they had to hurry to catch up with Marie so the maid wouldn't get lost too far. The process of searching for Marie began, but a few moments later, Ursh started asking Isabella about what Isabella would do if she could find her maid. Even if Isabella found her maid, she couldn't do anything because the maid couldn't realize her presence. True, all the statements expressed by Ursh never missed. Therefore, now Isabella felt panicked. She even followed Marie and secretly sneaked out of her mansion without saying goodbye to her father. Isabella took a deep breath. She realized the narration spoken by Ursh. Even when she knew that Marie was in trouble, she also couldn't do anything. The reason for following Marie no longer existed because Isabella had also met Ursh. Would Isabella have the heart to leave Marie? Of course, Isabella didn't have the heart because now she was thinking that it was impossible for her to leave Marie, especially if Marie was in danger later. Maybe she would regret her actions for not caring about Marie. Realizing how Isabella was so worried about her maid made Ursh offer to keep searching for Marie. The two of them even determined that if something happened to Marie later, they would immediately help the maid. Ursh's hand grip never left Isabella's hand. Occasionally, Ursh dug information from Isabella. Isabella was like a human in the shadows. Isabella observed how Ursh was well known by many people, but Isabella was self-aware. She couldn't disturb Ursh too long. Therefore, Isabella decided to use the magic eyes she had. Isabella tried to activate the magic eyes item and see Marie's whereabouts from afar. All those visions were so clear. Isabella combed every city alley to find Marie with the abilities she had. Isabella's X-ray eyes functioned very well, because this time she could find Marie's whereabouts, who was walking leisurely with empty eyes. Isabella was a bit worried about her maid's condition and intended to quickly tell Ursh about her findings. Wait, initially, Isabella was so sure to tell Ursh about Marie's whereabouts, but in a matter of seconds, she felt doubtful. She didn't know how to tell Ursh that she had found Marie. Behind that doubt, she tried to convince herself because it was impossible for her to always hide her powers, because after all, Ursh would become Isabella's husband in the future. And according to Isabella, it was bad if she kept hiding her abilities from Ursh. Just with one word thrown from Isabella's lips that she had found her maid, Ursh promptly ordered Isabella to take action immediately. Ursh was very prompt. He even immediately held Isabella's hand tightly, pulling the girl to meet her maid immediately. Isabella and Ursh ran while holding hands, but Isabella felt something odd in her heart. Why Ursh didn't ask why Isabella could find Marie so easily. Isabella was indeed very happy that Ursh trusted her, but that also made Isabella feel confused. Ursh's hand grip never left Isabella, even when they ran through the city. Some confusions made Isabella unable to hold her curiosity. Why Ursh trusted her too much, but when she knew the reason Ursh trusted her, it made her feel a bit comfortable, especially at that time. The man she loved smiled gently at her. If now there was something that could make Isabella feel appreciated, it was certainly because of the warm gratitude. Isabella never expected that Ursh trusted her so much. As far as Isabella knew, she had only met Ursh twice, but she never thought that Ursh trusted her that much. The atmosphere around Isabella and Ursh became a bit strange when Ursh started smiling at Isabella. The reality, Ursh wanted to trust Isabella because he didn't want Isabella to leave him. And if Ursh acted trusting towards Isabella, of course, Isabella had no reason to get rid of Ursh. Silence fell for a moment, but clearly Isabella's face had a strange expression. She felt there was something hidden by Ursh, but she didn't know about it, especially when Ursh smiled at her. According to Isabella, Ursh's smile was a bit creepy. She didn't know what plan Ursh would do behind the boy's sweet smile. Ursh's words this time were as if he was like a wise adult man, where he said he didn't want a relationship that hid from each other. Moreover, he also didn't know why Isabella chose him as her fiancé. Ursh tried to convince Isabella of the reason behind her choosing Ursh, or maybe Isabella choosing Ursh was a mistake. But Ursh tried for Isabella to keep liking him. Isabella blushed shyly. She didn't think Ursh would think like that. But clearly Isabella liked Ursh when she first met him. The red blush on Isabella's cheeks made her even cuter, especially since the girl was already flustered due to Ursh's narration. Isabella felt grateful. The girl even held Ursh's hand gently. The reincarnation Isabella did wasn't in vain, because she could know Ursh's nature even better. Set aside all the intimacy between Isabella and Ursh, because now they were back focusing on Marie. For some time, Isabella's search found her maid, who was being bullied by a group of men. Of course, Isabella felt annoyed. She even wanted to attack the people bullying Marie. But before Isabella could hit the people bullying her maid, Marie had fainted first, and that made Isabella stunned for quite a while. She felt guilty for letting Marie be attacked by people. This was the beginning of the sweet romance of two teenagers starting because Marie was so careless. The relationship between Isabella and Ursh became even closer. They even opened up to each other.